shall we start? So can I give a hint that it's time to start? No?
Yes, please.
Yeah, oh, thanks a lot. My name is Lars Ekman from the Swedish Transport Administration. And good afternoon, everyone, I should say. Here in Sweden, it's still morning and it's a little bit early for us, but it's a great pleasure for me to be the moderator of this interesting webinar. We have very distinguished presenters, and I see we have very many attendees at the conference or the webinar. But we have some housekeeping rules in order to make this run, and it's my job to get it be running. And you are all muted, so we can have a good channel. And for us in the panel, please get mute when you're not talking. And there is a translation function, so please find the translation button here. So and select your language, either English or Thai, and then you should have perfect translation for your language. So use the interpretation button. And as you've heard, that the session will be recorded and also published at the embassy's social media. And it's a very tight schedule here, so there will be no room for questions during or directly after the presentations, but there will be a Q&A session in the end. So please write your questions in the Q&A function. You can write in Thai or English, it's okay. And we will try our best to bring them up. And if not, we will have them dealt with later on. So, but it's very important that you write your questions here, and you could do it straight away and so on. But there will be room for Q&As in the end. And you have the link to the website down here. And as you could see, we have a very important program on a very important issue, and the paradigm shift with the Vision Zero will be highlighted, and we will have quite a lot of view forward how to do this, how to achieve Vision Zero when it comes to fatalities and seriously injured. And it's a very tough target, and we need to do much more than we have done before. But we will cover that in many views. So we will have participants from the political level, from the scientific level, from the private sector, and so on. But I think we will be using the time best by giving lots of room for our distinguished presenters. So I will actually hand over to our distinguished ambassador, Swedish ambassador, Jon Åström Gröndal. So the floor is yours, and I will stop sharing here.
Thank you so much, dear Lars. Delighted at this opportunity. Dear Senator Khun Surachai, colleagues, experts, participants, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are joining from. In fact, we are right now well over 80 participants, I see, joining from some 15 plus countries. I think that is quite amazing. You're all most welcome. In my view, this shows that the matter of road safety is very high on the agenda all over the world, and rightly It is not a coincidence that we are talking about it from here in Bangkok. We regret to note that Thailand for many years has had very high numbers of fatalities from road accidents. In fact, the highest in the region and among the highest in the world. On Sunday, in November 20, representatives from the embassy participated in the commemorative event for the World Day of Remembrance for Road Traffic Victims. This is an important day that the embassy takes part in every year. It's an important day to acknowledge and to remember the victims of road accidents, of course, but it is also a day for action to prevent further accidents. And I truly wish that at some point this day will not be needed. I know that this is far away, but I share the vision that was presented with the Swedish long-term goal, namely the Vision Zero. The ultimate objective is that no one should be killed or seriously injured through such an unnecessary cause as a road accident. My hope might sound naive, just like many thought when Sweden launched our Vision Zero. In 1997, many were quite skeptical about the possibility of reducing the already low numbers of fatalities in the traffic in Sweden even further. But I'm glad to say that now, 25 years later, this model, this vision of ours has been proven quite successful. In fact, the number of traffic fatalities in Sweden has been more than halved since the launch of this strategy. I think that the Swedish experience shows that the reduction of deadly or serious road accidents is not something that happens over a day. On the contrary, it takes a lot of work and highly set goals to fight the problem with road accidents. Exactly how this has been done and other valuable takeaways will be shared during this webinar today, where the true experts will tell us more about their experiences. But first, back to Thailand, where things are starting to go back to normal after the pandemic, as in most other countries in the world. During these highly unusual years, the pandemic has been constantly present and tough measures were in place. However, there is actually another pandemic in Thailand that received less attention, yet takes far many more lives. Road accidents do not only have devastating effects on victims, but also on public health, society as a whole, and on the prospects of the country's development. Let's compare the two for a minute. During the year 2021, Thailand reported approximately 20,000 deaths caused by COVID-19. This number is equivalent to the average annual toll of people being killed in traffic-related accidents in Thailand. Yet another 60,000 surviving victims have become disabled, and roughly 1 million people are injured yearly from road accidents in Thailand. Many have told us that we need to learn to live with COVID-19. And I believe that is correct, since we need to accept it becoming endemic. It will not go away. But what we should not learn to live with are these appalling traffic accident statistics. In fact, drunk driving or breaking the traffic rules should never be normalized or considered acceptable anywhere in the world. Sadly, we are all witnessing some unfortunate yet common sights on a daily basis, also here in Bangkok. It can be an entire family crammed onto a single motorbike, an overloaded truck tilting under its weight and driving on the fast lane, or it can be riders against the traffic or even on the pavement. During the pandemic, each and everyone's personal responsibility in avoiding spreading the virus has been stressed. All of us gained the habit of using hand sanitizer, keeping a distance to others, and to stay at home when we had symptoms, and to wear face masks, of course. Nevertheless, the responsibility of combating the pandemic did not only lie on us as individuals. I don't think that we would have come this far if the public authorities had not taken on the leadership. During the pandemic, the public authorities' responsibility was to provide us with a systematic approach in combating the virus. The same principle goes for the responsibility of prevention of road accidents. As easy as it is to gain the habit of wearing face masks and putting on hand sanitizers, as easy should it be to gain the habit of using helmets, seatbelts, and to stop at a red light. And just like vaccines were provided by the state, so should secure roads and an effective legal system for speed limitations be. The dire consequences from road traffic can be prevented, but just like the pandemic, we all need to make an effort in order to do that. Governments and lawmakers, I believe, have an important role to play here by providing leadership and to give priority to road safety. I personally and strongly believe in the power of legislation and regulations, also in creating behavioral change and change of societal norms. Now, I look forward to learning more about these issues by our true experts who kindly are taking their time to share their experiences with us. I would like to extend my warmest thanks to you all. And I would also like to thank everyone who is showing interest in these issues by participating in this webinar. I wish that you all get new insights to bring to your organizations. Thank you and welcome. I hope that you will all enjoy this webinar.
Thank you ever so much, Mr. Ambassador, and it's delighted to hear your devotion for this. This is actually not as impossible as it sounds in the beginning, but it always start with not accepting these other kind of pandemic as it is. We need to have a change, and you talked rightly with leadership, and that leads me to our next keynote speaker, Mr. Surashai, who is a lawyer by profession and chairman of the Senate Commission of Integrated Urgent Resurrection of Road Safety since 2014, and your engagement for road traffic accidents led you to a very important engagement for traffic safety. So please, Mr. Surashai, the floor is yours, and I believe the speak will talk a little bit about the political leadership in this issue. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to all of you, according to Bangkok time. And first of all, I would like to sincerely thank His Excellency Swedish Ambassador of Thailand to kindly organizing these webinars, which is an excellent opportunity for everyone's present. And I would like to thank you again for inviting me to take part in such an important agenda. And it is a topic that is directly involving with the problem, not just on the road transport in Thailand, but I strongly believe that it's a common problem at the global level for all the countries that we're still facing about the losses and the fatalities from the road accidents. I also am confident that all of you are aware that in each year, we have the number of the fatalities on the road accidents, more than 1.3 million per year. If we talk about Thailand alone, the average number of the fatalities is at 20,000 annually. Even though in the past 2 or 3 years, the numbers are decreasing at 16,000 or 17,000 annually. But I would like to say that it's reducing because of a special situation due to the COVID pandemic. Therefore, we still cannot be certain or cannot become stagnant in our effort and believe falsely that the situation in Thailand is getting better. It is on my behalf and the government's sectors, we still want to put all our efforts on these issues and to forge on without stopping so that we can achieve the ambitious goal that the United Nations stipulated in the developing the road safety within the year to 2030. We have to halve the fatality cases to reduce it by 50%. On the Thai government side, we also set up our national goals that we have to reduce the numbers of fatalities at 50% also by the year 2030, according to the SDG goals by the UN. Further than that, we are also setting up our own domestic goal and expedite it further. Within the year 2027, we determined to reduce the fatality case by half. That is why I would like to take this opportunity to inform all of you that the goals to rectify and also to work on the prevention measures of road accidents in Thailand, we set up the goals that would expedite the target 3 years earlier than the United Nations SDGs. And it is extremely challenging that the government sector has to take on. It is not just the government sectors alone, it's also involving the political and the legislative side. We have to strongly join forces together to achieve such an important national agenda. For the Senate, we have the Senate and the House of Parliament. Both of our House of Representatives also set up the committees and also the workforce to work together with the executive, which is the government, to advocate these priorities. And I am also in the committees for the integration of urgent resuscitation and road safety of the Senate. I had the opportunity to work together with all our networks and partners, both in the governments and the private sectors, to drive forward and mobilizing the priorities continuously. As our esteemed moderator said, we've been working since the year 2014, but I still have to inform you that because of the challenges, that is quite complex on the different level of structures. To overcome this and achieve the target, we need to put all our best and to spend time to make an effort to do this. We have to be devoted. Even though the number that we have now are giving us positive signals, but we still cannot be at ease. We still have to be more active because the number of fatalities is still very high. However, I would like to reaffirm that we are doing our best to develop the road safeties in Thailand so that it would be a safe and secure road in the true sense of the word within the time frame that the government has announced. At the minimum, the decreasing number of the fatality cases in Thailand from the road accident, the statistic of the road accident in Thailand, we have to decrease that significantly within the year 2027. And in parallel, I strongly believe that not just Thailand alone, all the countries around the world who are encountering the problems on the high fatality cases from road accident, we also are determined. We have the same goals in trying to find the best solutions for this important agenda so that we could develop the further safety for the road and more in a sustainable manner, especially for a group of countries that's still encountering the high fatality rates. I sincerely hope that for this webinar would be one of another important occasions for all of us to be together to take the lesson learned and to share important experiences that we received from the exchanges of opinions and insight, to be important knowledge and a foundation for our learning, so that we can together develop the road safeties so that all the countries would be up to the certain standard. And so our citizen and the global citizen in the world could travel on the road with a safety. And I also hope that the safety that would be happening in the futures would be stemming from the collaborations to find the solution together between all stakeholders. Last but not least, I would like to thank the Swedish ambassador to Thailand once again for kindly organizing this webinar on such priorities issues that would have an impact to the humankind in the world. And I really want to apologize that I could not be here until the end of the sessions, because I do need to attend another errands for another online meeting at 3 p.m. But thank you to all the participants. Thanks to the moderators and the participants, panelists. And thank you for all the participants from every country. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you ever so much. I do understand that you have a huge challenge, big country and huge challenges, and that's why it's so important to build it on a solid ground, which the Vision Zero is. And I'm now happy to introduce a very close friend of mine, Mats-Åke Berlin, who is actually the founder of this Vision Zero Academy. So he is the one to thank that we actually have this opportunity to spread the Vision Zero message around the world. But now you're working at the WHO, leading the Decade of Action, and you will talk about global road safety challenges and policy response. And Mats, okay, please, the floor is yours. And
thank you for the invitation. Can you see my slides?
Yes, it looks perfect.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to, in my presentation now, put the Swedish Vision Zero, of course, but also the Thailand challenge into a little bit broader agenda, this global perspective, and see how this fits together. First of all, as been mentioned now, 1.3 million people are killed every year in road traffic. But you know, WHO doing this list of all evil things that can happen to the humans, and on this list you will find things like heart attacks, strokes, and all these kind of things. But you also find road traffic injuries. So according to WHO, it's been estimated that road traffic injuries is actually the 8th leading cause of death around the world for all people. But among young people, in the people from the age of 5 to 29 years, road traffic injuries is actually the leading cause of death. So this is a huge problem. It's a huge public health problem, and it's a huge social problem. And when we look back a little bit on the trends in the world historically, we can see that there is a kind of plateau. We haven't, for the first decade of action, for example, we haven't seen a tremendous improvement. And as Suraj talked about this 50% reduction, this is a huge challenge for us. But we also know there is a huge difference between different countries. If you take And this is also estimations from WHO in the Global Status Report 2018. And you can see that there is a huge difference between different countries in the world. And according to this report, Thailand has about 30 fatalities per 100,000 inhabitants. And a country like Sweden has 2 fatalities per 100,000. So it's a huge difference also between different countries, different regions. And that is totally unacceptable, I would say. And the way that the global community has responded to it is actually, I used to say, there is a time before 2004 and a time after 2004, because 2004 was the first time ever in the history when the UN General Assembly discussed road traffic injuries as a global problem in the world. And the World Bank and WHO, they also launched this first world report on road traffic injuries. So this was a kind of first step to start a policy, a global policy process when it comes to this problem. And the next step was when the WHO and the UN region commissions organized these UN road safety collaboration. It's a kind of global road safety council with members from some member states, from UN agencies, from private sector NGOs, and they have been have meetings every year now since 2004. The next step when it comes to the political level was in 2009, and that was also the first time ever in the history when the Russia Federation organized the first ministerial conference on road traffic injuries. And the outcome from that meeting was what we call the decade of action, the first decade of action. And then we have been working with that since 2011. And in 2015, we had the second ministerial conference in Brazil, 2015. And that was a kind of midterm conference when we looked back and tried to estimate the progress with the implementation of the first decade of action. But also parallel now with this decade of action, the UN have been working with these SDGs goals, and road traffic injuries has become now an integrated part in the whole SDG agenda. And it's very clear when it comes to 3 and 3.6, of course, and 11, where the explicit talking about road traffic injuries. But if you think about it, you see that road traffic injuries actually underpins all these different aspects when it comes to safety, when it comes to poverty, when if we are smart when we implement road safety, it will also benefit things like climate change and so on. So there is lots of relations with other goals, I would say, in the implementation of a sound road safety work. And the third conference was in Sweden 2020, February, just before the pandemic. And this was a very important conference because it was an opportunity for us as a global community to look back and evaluate the implementation of the first decade, but it also gave us an opportunity to look forward, to look into the future and to 2030. And the outcome from that conference was the Stockholm Declaration. And unfortunately, due to this pandemic, then the road traffic somehow lost a little bit of its momentum, of course. But based on this declaration, the UN General Assembly has keep working with road safety. So in 2020, they adopted this resolution on road safety. And from that resolution, you will see that they, first of all, proclaim the period of 2021 to 2030 as the second decade of action for road safety. and with the goal of reducing road traffic deaths and injuries by at least 50% until 2021 to 2030. And they also requested that WHO and the UN region commissions to prepare a plan of action for the second decade of decade. And in 2021, last year in October, this plan was launched, and it was prepared by WHO and the UN region commissions together with the different partners in the UN Road Safety Collaboration. And this plan is very important, and there are lots of different elements, I would say, when it comes to safety. First of all, this plan is very much influenced by the Safe System approach and Vision Zero. And basically what that does is to really, as the ambassador said, it emphasizes the ethical imperative that we can't accept that people are killed and serious injury when they're moving from A to B. That's totally unacceptable. Road traffic injuries or road traffic death is not a price that we need to pay for our mobility. That is very important. That plan emphasized that, and then that's why road traffic safety or mobility safety become a human right. Actually, it becomes something that we all, as citizens in our different countries, can expect that we are working for creating a safe mobility. And the second thing is, of course, this 50% reduction until 2030. When you start to manage your road safety work with quantified targets like this, then it forces us to become much more systematically in our approach. We have to start to work with programs and plans that reach that. And we need to see it more from a holistic perspective. And we are not just working with safety in a reactive kind of approach that we take it day by day and we only implement interventions that we think is appropriate. You have to become much more systematic in your approach when you start to working with quantified targets. That's the experience from many countries who have been working for that with these kind of tools for many years. So I will not have the time, of course, to go into details when it comes to the content of this global plan, but I urge everyone to read it through, actually, and this plan is a kind of blueprint for the rest of the world that we would like to see that become reflected into national, regional, state and city-wide plans, because we think that this is a plan who emphasize very important aspect when it comes to safety. But let me just talk about some few important aspects in this plan. And the first thing is that when we look historically on our mobility, we have put very strong emphasis on the motorized individual mobility. And that have created a lot of problem for many societies. And it's not only safety. We struggle a lot now with things like the environment issues. We struggle a lot when it comes to health in general, because we would like to see people to become more physical active. We would like to see them be able to walking and cycling. But one of the major barrier for that to happen is actually safety. So we need to start to integrate safety into how we design our urban areas, how we design our mobility in our society. And we would like to emphasize walking, cycling, and public transport, because that's important from lots of different perspectives. But to make that happen, safety will become a very important enabler. Because if you think about it, as a parent, for example, you don't want to put your kids to go to and from the school when you know that they have to cross a street or whatever with a huge risk for their life. So if you don't work with safety, if you don't design for safety, then it will be very difficult to achieve these kind of things, I would say. Take motorcycling, which I know is a huge problem in a country like Thailand, for example. Well, of course, we have to work with motorcycle safety. But if we start to think about it a little bit more deeply, we will see that maybe we also need to go much more upstream. Because what is the alternative for people to go to work, to school and so on? If there is no alternative, if there is no public transport, for example, then it will be very difficult for them. And unfortunately, motorcycling is a very dangerous thing. It's to be exposed because you are in a high energy environment all the time. So you have to think much more broader in how you would like to design your mobility in your society. The road traffic work, the strategies, when we look historically on this issue, we have focused very much on individuals and their behavior. And of course, we need to do that also in the future, but we have to go beyond that. And that is what this global plan says. It said that we need to start to implement a much more holistic perspective on road traffic and road traffic injuries. It's important to see that the traffic environment is one of the protection layers, and I'm sure that others from Sweden will talk more about it. But that's the first thing, you know. If you have a poor design when it comes to traffic injuries, then it's only up to us as individuals to survive in a very harsh environment. But there are so many steps before the individual road user, and we have to start to address them from a safety point of view. And finally, as Surashi said in his speech, it's important with the government, but this global plan needs to also go beyond the government. This plan emphasizes a much more society-oriented road safety work, because road safety is so multi-sectorial. Yes, we need a government leadership, but we also need lots of different stakeholders involved and solve this problem. And we can see when it comes to things like climate change, how the private sector, for example, become much more involved into solving our social problems. And it's the same here when it comes to road traffic injuries. It's very important that the society in itself start to working with this issue, and not only an issue for the government. So I will stop there and thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Matsuoka. It's very breathtaking views you have from the whole society and the global issues with traffic safety and involvement for each and everyone at all levels. And we will certainly take up that in the Q&A session in the end. Now I will give the floor to another of my very close friends, Kenneth Svensson, and he has the difficult task to actually present the basics of Vision Zero in 20 minutes. And we normally give a 1-week course and the Vision Zero Academy arrangement that Kenneth is nowadays one of the organizer of. And then we have a full week to get it. So can you give us this full week course in 20 minutes, Kenneth? So you better start now.
Yeah, I'll do my best. Thank you. So I'll try to share my screen here. And I'll start the presentation. And I need to change here. So I hope you can see my screen properly.
Perfect.
Yes. So Vision Zero, what is it about? First of all, I would like to present a scenario for you. Imagine two cars driving after each other like this, and the driver of the red car believes that the driver of the blue car drives too slow, so he or she decides to overtake like this. And when the cars are parallel, the speed of the blue car is 50 kilometers per hour, the speed of the red car is 60 kilometers per hour. But then something happens in front of them. Maybe a child runs out in front of them. So the drivers need to stop the vehicles as soon as possible. And the question I have for you is, what speed would the red car be at when the blue car has stopped? So you can think for yourself and come up with an answer, and I will tell you the correct answer in a few minutes. It has all to do with basic physics. Every moving object has an energy, kinetic energy, we call it, and it's calculated like this. The mass multiplied with the velocity or speed in square divided with 2. And that means if you, for example, double the speed, the energy involved will not be doubled, it will be 4 times as high. And of course, that has influence on the stopping distance and eventually collision speed if something seriously happens. So I would like to show you this graph here. And it shows stopping distance and collision speed. And on this axis, we have the initial speed, and on this axis, we have stopping distance in meter. So if you see the blue line there where it says 50, that is the initial speed of the car that was driving in 50. So first, we also have we think that the driver has fast reaction time and it's hard braking on dry asphalt. So first, it's the reaction time of the driver. Then there is no reduction in speed. Then the driver starts to brake, and after some 27 meters, that vehicle has stopped. And if we think of the car that was driving in 60 kilometers per hour, it's the same thing. First, the reaction time, then is no reduction in speed. Then the driver starts to brake, and after some 34 meters, that vehicle have stopped. So if we think of that, when the first car that was driving in 50 has stopped, what is the remaining speed of the other car? If we just go straight up here, we find it right here. So it's around 40 kilometers per hour. So just a difference in 10 kilometers per hour from 50 to 60 can, in a critical situation, become the difference between standing still and maybe hitting an object in 40 kilometers per hour. And when I show this slide, I always use another example as well. Imagine that you are driving in 30 kilometers per hour and a child runs out in front of you, 12 meters in front of the car. What would have happened? So first, again, then it's the reaction time and the braking time. And after some 12 meters, you have stopped the car. So hopefully you would not even touch the child. But what if you have been driving in 50 kilometers per hour instead? Then we just go straight up here, and you will see that you will not even have started to brake. You will hit that child in 50 kilometers per hour. And that will be a very severe collision, maybe even a fatal crash. So this is very, very hard for us to understand that speed in some situation can be something dangerous. But we as humans have some kind of inbuilt feeling that heights is something we should respect. We would not like to do some maintenance work on the outside of a building on the 10th floor without some kind of safety equipment, because if we would fall down, we would hit the ground in some 90 kilometers per hour. But we know that people are driving in cars without seat belt in 90 kilometers per hour and 100, 110 and so forth, because people feel quite safe in a car. We don't have this feeling that speed can be something dangerous, but we have this inbuilt fear of heights. So this is a way to transfer the risk and compare it with heights instead. I usually show this slide as well when I present this topic. Usain Bolt, he's still the fastest man on earth. He has the world record of 100 meter. He ran at 9.58 seconds. The mean speed is 38 kilometers per hour if you calculate or do some math. He peaked 40 kilometers plus something. But what would have happened to Usain Bolt if he, instead of crossing the finishing line, would have run into a brick wall? We can understand he would be injured. He would probably have facial fractures, broken ribs, maybe become unconscious and things like that, but he would probably survive. He was still very young and fit. But this quite well illustrates that what we as human beings can tolerate when it comes to trauma and impact is the energy level that we ourselves can produce with our bodies. And if we exceed that limit, we need extra protection. For example, we need a helmet if we ride bike. We need to use seat belt if we are in a car and drive in higher speeds to be able to be safe and sound if something happens. Because today we quite well know where the thresholds are when it comes to severe and fatal crashes when it comes to the speed. This slide is quite rough, but it quite well sum up the research regarding risk curves. So this shows risk to be killed at different collision speeds. And on this axis, we have risk to be killed, and here we have the collision speed. So if you are a pedestrian and are hit by a car in some 30 kilometers per hour, in most cases, a collision like that will be quite okay. People will survive. But if you are very old and fragile, even a crash in 30 kilometers per hour, a collision in 30 kilometers per hour might be fatal. But if the speed would have been 50 or 60 or 70 kilometers per hour, well, most of those collisions are fatal. And if you take the head-on collision to a car that collide head-on like this, if the head-on collision is some 70 kilometers per hour on the, and if the persons in the car use seatbelt and you sit in a modern car, most of those crashes are survivable. But if the speed would have been some 90, 100 kilometers per hour and you would have a head-on collision, then most of those crashes are fatal. It doesn't matter if you sit in the most safe car in the world. The structure, the car cannot absorb that amount of energy, so those riding that car will still be killed. That's the way physics are. We can't get around that. And this slide here, it's a few years old, but it's not produced by the Swedish Transport Administration or so. It's from the Volvo car company. And they have told what design speed they can design the cars in order to protect those that are sitting in the car or are outside the car. So they say if the initial speed is 80 kilometers per hour, they would be able to protect those people riding in the cars if they use seat belt. But that also requires that the cars are equipped with safety equipments or things that can feel that a crash is unavoidable. So the car itself will start to brake and the speed will go down to maybe under 70 when the crash occurs. And when it comes to pedestrians, they say if the initial speed is some 40 kilometers per hour, and if the car is equipped with detection and they can feel that pedestrians are in front of the car and start to brake, then the collision will be not very severe and the pedestrians will be quite safe. And we as responsible for setting speed limits, we of course must work in harmony with this knowledge. So we don't set speed limits with oncoming traffic like 90, 100 kilometers per hour, because then this will not work. People will still be killed. So those responsible for roads and setting speed limits must work together with car manufacturers to get most safety out of the system as a total. So what is Vision Zero about? As we have already heard, it's an ethical standpoint that no one should be killed or suffer lifelong injury in road traffic. And it's also the knowledge that we as human beings always will make mistakes, errors, but that should not be punished with severe injury or fatality. And what I've been trying to talk about so far in this presentation is that the level of violence that the human body can tolerate without being killed or seriously injured shall be the basic parameter in the design of the road transport system. Vision Zero is also about shared responsibility. We often talk about system designers in the transport sector, and who are they? Well, it can be a transport administration, municipality, but it can also be car manufacturers, the police, and they are responsible for the design, operation, and use of the road transport system, and are thereby responsible for the level of safety within the entire system. The road users, of course, have also a responsibility. They are responsible for following the rules for using the road transport system set by the system designers. But then there is a third bullet point here that is very important. If the road user fail to comply with these rules due to lack of knowledge, acceptance, or ability, the system designers are required to take the necessary further steps to prevent people from being killed or injured. So that means it's a loop back to the system designers. As an example, let's imagine that road administration build a new road, and then they open this road for the public, and they have put the speed limit of this road to 70 kilometers per hour. But then they notice when this road is open for public that people are speeding, and the speed is much higher than 70 kilometers per hour. Should you, as a road authority, then just say, well, we have done our job. We have built this road and we have set the speed limit and we have done everything according to the rules, so it's not our case anymore. No, that is not the way it worked according to Vision Zero. The responsibility goes back to the system designer, to the road authority in this case. So then the road authority has to take further actions to prevent these crashes here. Maybe they need to talk with the police, so the police can do more surveillance here. Maybe they need to put up speed cameras to lower the energy in the system, or do some other kind of speed management actions on this road. And now I would like to just show you some examples how you can work according to these basic principles within the Vision Zero principles. So here we have a picture of a quite typical road, and this is a road from Sweden a couple of years ago, and it was 90 kilometers per hour on this road, and we had quite a lot of very severe crashes here, fatal accidents. And it's not so hard to understand why, because the posted speed limits here is higher than the Vision Zero design speed, so to say, because we know if there's a head-on collision, it will lead to fatal crashes. So what can we do? Well, we can lower the speed limit here on this road, and we might need to put up speed cameras here in order to make the actual speed in line with the posted speed limit. Or we can rebuild it to a 2+1 road, as we call it. We have 2 lanes in one direction where we can overtake other vehicles, and we have 1 lane in the other direction, and then we switch, so it will be 2 lanes in the 1 lane section, so to say. And then we can also higher the speed, make the speed limit higher, because it will still be much safer than before. So these are examples how you can manage this. I also would like to give the example of roundabouts. If you look to the picture to the left here, an ordinary intersection with traffic signals works perfectly most of the time. But if someone misses the red light, then there can be a very severe side-on collision, which can lead to very severe consequences. But if you look at the picture to the right, it's a roundabout, you will have other collision angles, you will have lower speed if there is a collision, and you will not see any severe collisions here, no fatal accidents. But what is interesting between these two pictures here is that the number of accidents itself will not go down. It might even be higher if you rebuild it to a roundabout, but the consequences will be much less severe. And that is really a key for the Vision Zero or strategy, that we should focus on the severe consequences of crashes, not crashes that only lead to material damage. Another example from an urban area in Gothenburg, my hometown, quite a busy street. We'd have residential houses on both sides of the roads. There are a lot of restaurants and shops, and there's a need to cross this street for pedestrians. So what the municipality has done is that they have put up fences here, and we also have trams on this street. So where they are opening in the fences is where the pedestrian can cross the street. And there you have also put up speed bumps in order to lower the energy of the system, so it will be as safe as possible for the pedestrians. So this is how you can think of in a Vision Zero way in an urban area. I know there is a huge problem with motorcycles in Thailand, and according to the Global Status Report from 2018, I think it was 74% of all fatalities was powered 2- or 3-wheelers in Thailand. So I would like to use my last minutes here to talk about that topic a bit. So I would like to present 2 reports here. The first is Riding in a Safe System, Safety for Powered 2-wheelers. And it was in June, it's from 2021. It's produced by the International Transport Forum, the Swedish Transport Administration, the Swedish National Road and Transport Research Institute, and also the International Motorcycling Federation and motorcycle manufacturers. So they had a workshop and came up with some recommendation how to work with safety for two-wheelers. And the other report is Powered 2- and 3-wheelers safety, and it's produced by WHO and the Global Road Safety Partnership, FIA Foundation, and the World Bank, and it was released just a month ago. So I would like to show some of the recommendations in these 2 publications. So we have problems in Thailand with motorcyclists. So how can we address this? Well, according to these reports, of course, helmets are essential when it comes to motorcyclists. I know there's a helmet law in Thailand, but still very low helmet wearing rate, and this, of course, needs to be addressed. And also very important not to use substandard helmets that gives minimum protection, no more protection than a hat. So all stakeholders should promote the use and standardization of helmets so that there are safe helmets out there on the market. And another thing is, if you look into the vehicle itself, we know that an anti-lock braking system, ABS, is very helpful. We know that ABS reduces the number of accidents and also the severely injured and fatalities. And according to MIRAS, the Malaysian Institute of Road Safety Research, the ABS system can reduce fatalities among motorcyclists with 30%. And as I have understood it, Thailand has mandated ABS to be a standard fit equipment for all motorcyclists produced after 2024. And that is, of course, a very good decision that you have made. If we look at the infrastructure itself, this is a picture from Malaysia. where some of the roads have these exclusive motorcycle lanes because it's very dangerous to have this combined different kind of vehicles on the same road with different speeds and things like that. And this has been very successful in Malaysia. It has reduced the number of fatalities and severe injuries. So, of course, I understand this is very hard to rebuild roads and have these exclusive motorcycle lanes. But when you produce new infrastructure, have this in mind and do the right thing from the beginning. And as Mats-Åke told us about earlier, this slide here illustrates that we should support modal shift. We know it's much safer to use public transportation compared to riding a bike and even going by a car as well. And it's also more environmentally friendly. So we should try to facilitate for more public transport so that motorcyclists can have another possibility to travel. And finally, speed limits. According to the latest research, if you have a crash in 60 kilometers per hour on a motorcycle, it is 10% risk to be killed, but still very high percent to be severely injured. So 60 might be the highest speed limit that you can have when it comes to motorcycles, but preferably lower. And I've heard that in Thailand, you will have maximum speed limits of 60 kilometers per hour for motorcyclists in built up areas. And that is a good first start if it can be combined with better helmet usage. That was forced, but that was my last slide. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Kenneth. And it was a challenge to do this in this short time, and you almost made it. And it's interesting to see that the Vision Zero is both the very global, wide overview, but it's also down at the street corner, at the helmet level, or the very, very concretely, and the issues of speed. We will take up more of that in the Q&A. And now, not to do something completely different, but slightly different, but very, very, very hands-on and well. So I will introduce Dr. Ted Jing, and as far as I understand, he's known as the DDD, Doctor Don't Drive Drunk person in Thailand, if that's correct. And you're very dedicated to the drunk driving issues. And the floor is yours, and talk about the work with this important problem with drunk driving. So please, the floor is yours, talking about your foundation.
Thank you. 30 years ago, while I was still working in the Ministry of Health as an eye doctor or ophthalmologist, one day the head of the ministry asked me to do an emergency medical service, which I don't have any knowledge because too many people die on the road. So I start my work as a organizer for ambulance service in Thailand. At that time, no ambulance service from the hospital, only from the Samaritan in Thailand. So I start to work as an ambulance worker. We found out that most of the people that we pick up from the road, mostly 90% sent to the hospital is from road accident. And much more than that, 90% of the road accident drunk. You don't have to measure because you can smell it immediately. So I try to tell my boss that if we make good medical service, but we cannot stop the drunk driver, we'll be in trouble. So he said, okay, what will you do? So I tried to collect the number update. At the time in Thailand, New Year is a big celebration. So I gather the number update from road accident from all over the country. Every hospital sent me. At that time, there is no line, no electronic, just by fax, our fax burned out. But we found out that one day during that period, New Year, hundreds of people die on the road. And we tell that to the government. They did not believe it. And they said, oh, it's just today because today is a new year. But we extend that for 7 days. It's 700 people die. We wake them up a little. So they start what we call in Thailand 7 dangerous day. 7 dangerous day into event in Thailand, New Year and Songkran, which is a big festival like a Thailand New Year. And we try. They said, okay, it's only New Year and Songkran. So they only work 14 days a year. I mean, 2 periods, 7 New Year days and 7 Songkran days, up until today. But we did not quit. We try to find out, aside from New Year and Songkran, how many people dead. We have a friend, and we try to collect until we can collect that the number of people die from the Ministry of Health, about 10,000 people a year. 10,000. They still did not wake up so much. But on one day in 2011, the WHO said, 2010, the WHO said Thailand have 26,000 people die. And that wakes him up. At that time, we have about 13,000 record. So we work hard. Until today, we have almost equal to what the WHO said, that is 20,000. Luckily, 2 years ago, there's a COVID, so that reduced to about 18,000. Thing is not getting better. Out of that 20,000, this year 420 foreigner, 1 Swedish, 12 English die. As a civil society, we have no authority, but we have the power to push. We push the government, before there is no breath analyzer. We push until every police station have breath analyzer. We have 50 mg% limit for a drunk driver. Now we have 20 mg% for the newcomer and 0 for public transport. We have breath analyzer, but we still cannot make the police do breath analyzer every accident. That is our next goal, to make every accident to have a breath analyzer. We have National Dry Day from our foundation, National Dry Day, and we have no advertising for alcohol from our foundation. I have the opportunity to be a National Human Rights Commissioner. And at that time, we make a study and report to the government that we were violated by the right to life, right to life. We make a report. Nothing happened until today. We are glad that you have Vision Zero, because we have zero vision. Not even one political party have policy about road safety. That's why we cannot go ahead and make this. It's not like COVID. If we do something like COVID, we can reduce this one in maybe 70 or 80%. This year, I have opportunity to meet the Prime Minister, the present Prime Minister, because on the 21 of January this year, one of the famous doctor in Thailand was killed on the road at the zebra crossing. by the police riding a big bike with the doctor. And this is a very big issue in Thailand. So we went to the Prime Minister asking that every 21st of January will be Thailand Road Safety Day. I followed it up. They said it's still in process. I don't know that it will be available next year or not. Oh, last Sunday, we have a celebration, an event about World Day of Remembrance. 15 years of organizing this event, we never received any single dollar from the government. We hope someday the government will take over this event. Road safety is a tragedy for Thai society, but fighting to make roads safe is even more tragic. Yesterday, I met Mr. Chong Thot, UN Special Rapporteur for Road Safety. He asked, what do you want? I said, I want from you a report as a rapporteur that Thailand is facing dangerous, is facing disaster on the road. Maybe we have some discourage, sometime, but we never quit. We will push until the government take road safety as one of the top priority in their policy. We hope someday our government will see this importance of 20,000 people dead, a year. That is important. We hope that Thai people will join hands like we prevent COVID. If we can do that, this is the number that I would like to show all of you. This is yesterday, the 22nd of November. 43 people died in Thailand, all across the country. This month, from the 1st to the 22nd, 987 people died. From 1st January until this day, 30,000 people died. You compare to last year, the same time, 11,679 persons died. About 1,300 people died more than last year. We are very good in prevention COVID, but we fail in prevention road crash. Thank you very much.
Thank you ever so much. I could see a huge challenge, and I do appreciate all the effort you put into to emphasize this. And I could actually only wish you the best luck in this work, and we will come back to that. But it's a really huge challenge. And now we will go into a relatively new area in road safety, actually the private sector. And I have the privilege to introduce Dr. Cecilia Sunnevong, Vice President of Research at Autoliv in Sweden. And you are, Autoliv, is the leading company for automotive safety. And it's so important that you emphasize your role in society, because we all need to work together. And Cecilia, if you could, perfect. The floor is yours, Cecilia.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and it's an honor and a privilege to speak here today about our contribution as a private company to this second decade of action. But first, a few words on Autoliv. We are the world's largest manufacturer of steering wheels, seat belts, and airbags. And our vision is to save more lives, and we have spent the last 70 years doing so. Our mission is to provide world-class life-saving solutions for mobility and society, and that means that we are now looking outside of the passenger car. And actually, every year, or annually, our products save close to 35,000 lives. However, there are 1.35 million reasons to do more. And as we have heard, I mean, the road safety is really a global challenge. So in the 2018 data from WHO, also that more than 50% of the fatalities were actually happening to people not in a four-wheeled vehicle. And that is, like we heard from Dr. Berlin, this modal shift and using other modes of transport than only the passenger car. It's an issue because due to the climate reasons, we will not be able to have personal cars, maybe not as many cars as we have today. We also need to encourage people to walk, to bicycle, use motorcycles, and of course the public transport. So even though a lot has been made with a focus on the vehicle safety, we have to adopt the same kind of methodology as we have also heard from both Dr. Berlin and Kenneth Svensson. And we have to do that for the other modes of transport. And I will use how we work with motorcycle safety as an example. So starting with the Vision Zero and the model for safe traffic, in the safe system, the human is in the center, and it's our tolerance of impact and also for cognitive loading. And that means that we have to focus on the driving or the riding task. And our abilities is really sets the boundary conditions. So around what we can manage is how we need to design the system. So design the safe infrastructures, as we showed before. Safer roads, having vehicle technology that assists the driver or can mitigate the injury in case we have a crash. We also saw some good examples, both from the infrastructure side as well as the vehicle technology as the ABS. I will, of course, talk from an Autoliv perspective what we can do, but we are only one player also from the private sector that is included in the safe system. We also have the road user who needs to be aware of risks and comply to different rules and regulation. And these three combined sets the safe speed that Kenneth also talked about, which is then how we make the journey from A to B safe, and thereby we achieve the safe transport system. So this is part of the Vision Zero and also in the Vision Zero Academy course. And how do we as Autoliv work according to this? We have something that we call the circle of life. And this is really to take a holistic approach to road safety. And it's a data-driven approach. So if we start at 12 o'clock, we always start with the real life safety. And then if we go to the right, we start with the accident statistics on a macro level. And then also in-depth data from real crashes, but also data that we collect from real riders or drivers and also in field operation tests. Then we have also on the other side, biomechanical data and also physiological data from test specimens or test subjects in different studies. So going from the data, we have the expertise in the biomechanics and the human factors to understand how these tragic events happen, how the injuries or behaviors can be prevented or mitigated. And that is really the basis for how we develop the technologies that then is a countermeasure for these injuries or behaviors. Then, of course, it's also that we have to show that our solutions actually work, and that is we need test methods. Then we validate our solutions, and we can implement them or start a production as we are actually providing products and services. So in essence, this process helps us understand the traffic safety concerns, and we also use it then in our product development. So then, continuing with the motorcycle safety. We're using government statistics, we have insurance data, we have the in-depth crash data, and also naturalistic driving studies. And in this presentation, I will focus on the in-depth crash data that we have from India, Germany, and China. And based on this data, we get a very detailed view on what types of injury, what types of crashes, and then how can we replicate them in a laboratory settings. So we know about the most frequent injuries from these 3 countries, and of course you can extrapolate them into certain regions, like Germany represents Europe. It's more complex in India and China, and that's also why I want to emphasize the need of data from Thailand as well. So what we see from these in-depth studies is that the most frequent injuries occur to the head, to the lower extremities, and also to the thoracic region. We know also that the frequency depends on helmet usage. Helmet wearing rate in China, Germany, and India are, as you see, 18% in China, 85% in Germany, and 16% in India, although all 3 countries have mandatory helmet usage. Then, of course, if we look at the most frequent load cases, we also see that it differs. It differs because of the infrastructure and also on the driving culture. So in China, the most frequent fatalities occur when the motorcyclist is hit from the side by a car or a truck. In Germany, it's mostly the motorcycle going into the side of the car and also impact the ground. And in India, it's frontal collisions, motorcycle to car or motorcycle to truck. So here again, it's the importance to understand what are the most prioritized load cases for your country. We've started working together with Thailand Accident Research Center, looking into what types of vehicles were involved, what happened in the scenarios, and obviously we will continue to do this. It looks promising, but we really need to have more data and also data that we can make nationally representative. So again, I want to stress the importance of the data, because that is really the foundation also how on a country level you can put the KPIs on your measuring the success with the different implementations of safe infrastructure, safer vehicle, or safer riders. Then moving from the data, when we know the most frequent injuries and the most frequent load cases, we do physical and virtual evaluation. So we have a crash test dummy. We also have a finite element simulation model of that dummy. And we validated, as you can see, we have here a full-scale crash test that we did partially funded by the Swedish Transport Administration, to looking into the most frequent load case in Sweden and in Germany, where the motorcyclist hit the side of the car. At the same time, we also have a more detailed version of human, called the human body model, because the dummies have limitations. They are developed specifically for in-vehicle crashes, so some limitations in instrumentation. And as you can see in the video to the right, here we can see more details. We can see loadings that are not picked up by a regular crash test dummy. And this is also how we contribute in developing the relevant tools which you can use to evaluate safety system on the motorcycle or on the rider, or even on the car. So what we have come up with is that we have 3 different categories of countermeasures, again, that will play a role together with such as ABS or an improved infrastructure. You can put countermeasures on the vehicle, so external airbags like you see in the below for the cyclists, or you can put countermeasures on the motorcycle, like a motorcycle airbag that was demonstrated in the Myros 10-year anniversary. Then, of course, we have the on-rider safety. So having a helmet, of course, and having a good helmet. You can also improve helmet protection by an inflatable airbag, for instance. But the most important thing is to wear the helmet and have it as a minimum standard requirements. Then also we see the potential for inflatable vests or jackets. That's also something that could make a difference. And of course, in this digital era, we can also improve safety awarenesses of having apps or different feedbacks to the users. It's different depending on what kind of motorcyclist you are, but it's also a community where you sometimes want to share your ride, where you want to become a better rider, and that's how you can use it to communicate with the community. So that was really a very fast example on how we work. So again, starting with the data, representing what we see in real life in a laboratory environment, and try to address what's really going on. From that, we develop our products and we validate it again. And what I said about the 35,000 lives our products save every year, it's actually that we do calculate based on what we get from the different reports on real fatalities. That is how we calculate that number, and we will continue to do so for even new products. So in general, Autoliv, we do contribute to the SDG 3.6 and also other SDGs, of course, but we provide the safety solutions that address real safety challenges right now, but also for future traffic. And obviously we support that there is a need to accelerate the adoption of the safe system principles, but it has to be an evidence-based evaluation. So we need to base it on real life data. We also acknowledge that we have to address every single modality. So unprotected road users, also for public transport, etc. And we want to accelerate how to harmonize the technical regulation and also how to implement already proven technologies like we have mentioned ABS, which Thailand has already done, and that's great, but maybe also for lower CCs, etc. There is also what we can see as a benefit would be to develop voluntary standards and also consumer tests for new solutions, but they also have to be evidence-based, because consumer test is also linked to awareness and how can you make the users aware. And also, of course, as a private company, we have to acknowledge that we have to make cost-efficient solutions also for a global level. So that is the contribution from the private sector. And again, I want to emphasize that it's really a collaboration. And in Sweden, we use the triple helix model with academia, industry, and policymakers. And I think that is a very successful way moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much. It was an excellent illustration that the Vision Zero actually is based on facts, based on research, based on data, and it's not just a matter of opinions, it's actually facts, and thus we can lead to development. And it's amazing to see things that not many years ago it was unbelievable to think of airbags for motorcyclists or airbags outside the car for that matter. So it's thrilling to see that the development is so rapid. And now we actually concluded our presentations, and we are, even if some minutes delayed, we're into the Q&A sessions, and we have got some questions in the Q&A, but you can keep on adding questions. And I will actually start with the questions that I've raised to Dr. Mats-Åke Berlin about the reasonable targets. We have a 10-year 50% reduction target, which is very commonly used, and we have got a question about what is a reasonable target, specifically when it comes to a situation where we have a stagnation in many of our countries as a starting point.
Okay.
Can you elaborate a little bit about the level of target?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are, of course, different ways to set targets, and basically, I would say that the countries use two different methods. One is to actually calculate the target from known effects from interventions, and then they can aggregate that to a target. That's one way. And if you do that, I think that most country actually is quite easy if they implement those known interventions that we already know that have an effect on road safety. We have a lot of knowledge, I would say, in this area, and very much based on of course, of research from the industrial part of the world, who after the World War faced a very steep motorization, and that triggered lots of research into road safety. That's why we can talk about speed as a very important risk factor. That's why we can talk about alcohol and wearing seatbelts and that sort of thing. So we have a lot of knowledge, and based on that, I would not say that 50% reduction is a very ambitious target from that point of view, but it is according to this trend now, because we have to go from this target to implementation, but it's not the lack of knowledge to achieve that. So that's one way to work, you know. But with this Vision Zero and Safe System, the targets plays a little bit different role, I would say, because eventually in the future we would like to see a safe system where nobody killed or seriously injured. And in that respect, the target become more milestones to achieve that. So we don't have to, we really need to emphasize the safe system perspective and see this quantify targets at step by step to achieve this the safe system. And this is important, I think, you know, because that puts a lot of things that we are doing in a different perspective. If you take these seat belts wearing, for example, and you take a country like Sweden, which have a, let's say, a 97-98% seat belts wearing in the society, that's from one perspective could be very good, you know, 97, 98, but in a safe system perspective, you need 100%. Because we know that we can't design a road transport system with people without belting, and that goes also for helmets, I would say. So everything that we do puts into a new perspective, I think. So and this target setting then needs to be in line with this kind of perspective, I think.
Thank you ever so much. It's utterly important that we actually see some progress and things are happening, because reaching Vision Zero doesn't go by itself. It's hard work, and we need all support we can have. And we have got one question which was very concrete in a way, and that was to you, Kenneth. You talked rightfully so quite a lot about speed and speeding. What about the speed compliance? I mean, we know the expert, we know the importance of speed, but normally people don't, as you pointed out. But what can we do when people don't understand that and thus are speeding? Have you any advice or recommendation to this very tricky questions? But that was raised.
Yeah, of course, it's not enough just to put up a speed sign on the road and says 80. We need to get the drivers to comply to that. And of course, surveillance is important. And in Sweden, we have what we call our traffic safety camera. Those are speed cameras, but we have found them very effective since we are very open with them. The camera can take a picture of the driver and the driver can be fined. But it's not that we want people to be fined. So we are very open. We have a sign before every camera. There's a speed camera ahead. And that also make people accept them. So that is one way to work more with surveillance. So.
Thanks a lot. I mean, we really need to do something, and physical countermeasure is also very important. Cecilia, do you have any comment about from the technology point of view when it comes to these, what we normally call behavior related issues? People don't behave as they should. I mean, we know we have very important support system nowadays for people who don't dare to use the seatbelts. And what about speed and other things? Do you have any good comments about that?
Well, good comments. I don't know,
Sorry.
but obviously I have comments. No, but
Yeah.
I think it's really that we have to design the system. I mean, going back to what Kenneth said, it's one thing that you can enforce and you can tell people that you have to do it, and you have people change their behavior for maybe a week or two, and then they go back to what was before. So what we really need is to have, you know, user-friendly system and of course the education. But I think in order to change a behavior, what we see from the active safety in cars, for instance, with a lane departure warning or blind spot detection, is that they have to be designed so that they are reliable and people can trust them, and not a lot of annoyance, because then people will turn them off. And it's the same for the seatbelt. I mean, we know, even though this is an innovation that has been on the field for 70 years, we know we have what you call comfort issues, and we are constantly working with it. But I think it's really more and more that we have to put the user in the center and then design around it. And that's why I also think that having an airbag on a motorcycle can be a good solution, because then it's on the motorcycle, it's not your choice. But will it solve the problem? No, because it will only protect in part of the crashes. So we will have to have multiple solutions.
Thanks a lot. That was a very good comment in my view. What about the collaboration with the industry and the government, or the legislation part? Do you see any things blocking you, hindering you for doing the goods, or what are you wanting from the societal or the government level to make better use of the new technology?
I think it's important what I said before, that we need this triple helix. So we need the academia, and we need the industry, and we need the policymakers. And I think I don't want to talk about blocking, but what could emphasize or maybe empower this collaboration is to have research platforms where we could have funding, for instance, for the universities. Because it's one thing that the private sector, we of course want to invest in research, but to really get a good return of investment, that is a good thing if we also get some support for the academic partners, as well as doing pilots. I mean, even governments need support. We need to collaborate in order to pilot the new technologies and show the benefit from them. So I think supporting research collaboration from a governmental point of view is really good. And then also help in harmonizing standards and pushing for new technology.
Thanks a lot. And that actually leads to the issue of building up capacities in a country. We have in Sweden and other countries, research and university plays a very big background, and many of us here actually have that background with our PhD and everything. What can someone from Thailand say? Do you have anything good research in that? I mean, we have the Vision Zero Academy that we could support you in one way or another, but that is not really a university level. Do you? I mean, because it's very essential, because all this talk about facts and so on. So can someone from Thailand comment about the lack or the need for research support for the Vision Zero and all the countermeasures that are needed?
Can I make some comment?
Perfectly.
Actually, 30 years, I think we don't need any more research in Thailand. We know what happened. We know what is the cause. We know everything. We even have the best, I think, statistic in the world. Every day we know how many people die. I think it's the only country that have this statistic every day, every week, But 30 years, I found out that law enforcement in Thailand cannot overcome this tragic situation or road safety. But, you know, fortunately, technology is now coming. We are now like experienced. We are now in a very early stage, but maybe it's only in Thailand because it's appropriate to our culture. I think so, but may not be appropriate with the Western country. In Thailand, you know, to lose some money is not a problem, but to lose face is a big problem. Is a big problem. So what the technology is now doing is that everybody now is a media, right? You have Facebook, you have everything. Technology can take the picture. We are now combining this together, and we say, okay, if people, that is one thing that we talk with the Prime Minister, and he agreed. So he ordered the dash cam in every new car, and the reward for the one who can tell the police who is doing wrong on the road. So now we're trying to do like a police. Everybody is a volunteer police in the street. So if you saw some bad habit, some bad behavior on the road, you film that, you video that, and you send that. Now we create a page called volunteer police, something like that, volunteer police. So you send that video of the bad behavior to us. You know, the foundation make the page in Facebook, and we collaborate with the police. The police and the Don't Drive Drunk Foundation and the private sector, we get about 50,000 baht a month. We give prize to the one that shoot the best, you know, video that show the bad behavior. You know, there's a lot of videos sending in 100, but we choose 10 because we only have 50,000. The first that is very good received 20,000. Second received 10,000. Third 6,000 baht, and the rest is how do they call the compliment 2,000 baht for 7 reward. We are now using a technology. We see that technology and social media has disrupt, you know, many things. Bank, newspaper, they disrupt all. So in Thailand, we will use this social media and technology to disrupt the way we fight with the road accident. So if everybody, you know, watching is like a magic eye in the society, I think, you know, people will be afraid of being a hero. We in Thailand, we call a hero in the air, you know, because there will be posts in Facebook, in many other social media, and he will be a celebrity overnight. That guy, you know, last month, one football champion in Thailand, you know, have drunk and hit. Some people die. Somebody filmed that. You know what happened? He was fired from the organization, but received not yet any punish from the police and the court. Yeah. But he was fired already. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Matsuoka Belin, I should like to have a comment from you about, I mean, also the research on how to get things done, not only in what we have heard now about social media, but actually to get a real change in society, because it's true that we know quite a lot about the danger on speed and crashes and so on. But the thing is, still we have too high speeds, not good infrastructure and so on. Can you enlighten us a little bit about the things that can make change in a society?
No, I agree. So as Tashing said, there is a lot of knowledge about the risk factors and what's actually cause fatalities and serious injuries. And for the next decade now, the focus will be very much about implementation to make sure that transfer this knowledge into concrete things. And of course, that will be very contextualized. It depends very much on the culture, and this was a very good example on things that might work in Thailand but might not work in Sweden. But we need to be much more systematically about it, just like we are. Cecilia showed how systematically they are collecting data and develop their products and that sort of thing. But we need to be much more systematically also on the implementation and how we make things work. And unfortunately, that kind of research based on social science and so have been very much focused on things that goes wrong, that end up in something that doesn't work. And we need more of the good example. Of course, it's good to know what don't work, but we also need to know more about what actually works. How should we work for make changes? And I think that as the ambassador said in the beginning, a country like Sweden already in the front when it comes to road safety, when they adopted Vision Zero in the late 90s, and still lots of people thought that is what we can, a country like Sweden can achieve, but show that they could go from 7 fatalities to less than 2 fatalities per 100,000 inhabitants, and that shows a very good example on the implementation of road safety. So we need this, and not only this national, we need some maybe local example on how things work, so we can amplify that, and talking about also the good example, because it's needed from a leadership point of view. It's needed to show progress somehow and amplify this progress. So thank you for that question, Lars.
So I'm looking at my watch, and we are coming close to the conclusions here, but I will still give the room for some more questions. And you that support me here, have I missed some important questions? So please let me know. We have got some clarification about the ABS system on motorcyclists, and there was a comment that there still is a problem with the smaller bikes, and even with bicycles we have a problem with the locked wheels when you brake. So that's an issue. Do we have any other final questions? Otherwise, I will try to summarize it. I don't see in the chat, or the Q&A is empty. So then I will try to sum things up, but I think I still want room for another question. how should I say? I will give one to Cecilia about the. Sometimes we think that these fancy systems that you produce are sometimes get the criticism. Yeah, that is for the luxury cars in high income countries. So what about safety devices for low and medium income countries?
Yes, I mean, this is an important question because in some parts when you have new technology, it is expensive, and we can use the ABS as a good example that comes on a smaller scale. And I think it goes back to what Mats-Åke also alluded to, that we need to have a structured way of implementing these solutions. But having, I mean, we have our colleagues in Thailand that can also support. I mean, we have a collaboration where we also understand more, again, with the user in the center. Why is the helmet usage low? Because of the comfort and because of the climate. It's the same. I mean, it's no point if we design an inflatable airbag vest if you can't wear it because it's too hot and humid. So I think what we have learned and what we need to do also from all parts of the private sector is to understand the situation in the country where we need to provide the solutions to. But it's a twofold, because in some areas we need maybe the more high-end technology to prove also the functionality, and then when it comes in volumes, then it's also when the price go down. So again, this is the collaboration between government incentives and the private sector, that sometimes we need to push out the technology, and once we get the volumes, then the price will also be lower.
Yeah, and we also have the sad examples where you actually, some car companies actually take away things that are more or less paid, and doesn't, because it's development cost that is the biggest. So it's quite embarrassing that some countries have vehicles without safety devices that actually shouldn't cost so much, but because in the long run, many of these are not, I mean, expensive in that respect. It's actually the development costs that are important. Thanks ever so much for that.
If I may add, that's why it's so good with these consumer tests that can inform. And Global NCAP is doing a great job, and other NCAPs as well. So consumer tests is good drive.
Yeah, and we have a, that's why we have, from the Vision Zero Academy and the Swedish Transport Administration, are heavily involved in the NCAP movement, because that is utterly important. Because I mean, it's not up to each individual to understand these issues, because they are you don't use them on a daily basis. You need them when they're really needed as most. And yeah, and we have this quite common question: how come that we design vehicles for 200 kilometers per hour, and we show that I mean, it's no sensible way to use them in that way? And why do we have the normal speed limit in urban areas far too high, according to what Kenneth showed us, the reasonable speed? But I don't expect that anyone could have a proper answer to that. If we have a comment, it's fine. Otherwise, I will try to sum up. I do that. So thanks ever so much for these very, very important contributions for the big challenges. And I assume that this will lead to a very challenging implementation of the Stockholm Declaration for Thailand. And I think that's extremely important, as has been highlighted here, that it's done in a systematic way, systematic work, using knowledge, but also have it systematic work. And all sectors need to be involved, because this concept of system designers actually include, I think, each of us talking and listening to this seminar. I think we 100 persons are defined as system designers. We are the one designing the system and that should not lead to serious injuries or fatalities. And we need to do it in a collaborative way, because it's not a one-man show. We need to do this together. And thus we need leadership from the very highest when it comes to on the policy level, on the academia, on the knowledge level, but we need leadership so things could be changed. And not only more of the same. We need issues about modal change, speed, the use of safer vehicles, but primarily the important change in view when it comes to responsibility. We should stop the blame game. It's not due to clumsy drivers or stupid persons. It's actually about a dysfunctional system, and that we have to do. And new technology is our biggest hope in this way. But it's utterly important that all these efforts should be emphasized on the worst outcome. So we should not hunt for reducing only crashes, but primarily reduce the consequences. Primarily, we have a vision for zero fatalities. So we need to focus on the most severe one. So by this, I think it's about time to have the other closing remark, and I think in the end we will see a tough video about the consequences when things goes really bad. So I hope this could be a starting point or a good step towards the implementation of the Vision Zero in Thailand, and the Vision Zero Academy is happy to support with this and in the future. So I will again thank all the speakers and the patient listeners to this webinar. And I don't think this will be the end. It will be a starting point of the new future where people don't get killed or seriously injured just by transporting themselves from A to B. So thanks ever so much.
กำลังได้ที่เลย
กลับก่อนนะ เฮ้ย เซฟ รับไหวเหรอ ขับไหว ไม่ได้เมาขนาดนั้น
เซฟ รับไหวแน่นะ
ขับไหว
คือเพื่อนเขาถามครับว่ารับไหวเหรอที่จะต้องเปลี่ยนมาใช้รถคันนี้ แล้วทำให้แม่เสียใจทำให้แม่ลำบากรับไหวเหรอถ้ารับไม่ไหวอย่าบอกว่าขับไหว
So I think it's time for me to deliver some closing remarks. Thank you so much, dear Lars, for moderating this webinar. I think that the clip that we just watched is just one of the examples of how a life can be affected by a road accident. Sometimes it's not only the survivors of the accident or their caregivers who are affected, but also people who lost their loved ones. The impact can be even more devastating in countries with weak or non-existing social safety nets, of course. It is crucial that we learn lessons and improve for the better. Lives do not have to be lost or inflicted with disabilities. Resources of the countries do not have to be wasted because of road accidents. This can be prevented. And we are convinced that many countries, including Thailand, can make the same journey as Sweden in reducing traffic fatalities a lot quicker and avoid many of the mistakes that we have learned from. The key takeaway from this Vision Zero webinar is that no one should be killed or seriously injured in traffic, and that the design, function, and use of the transport system should be adapted to the required standards. But before we reach that point, I hope that everyone will join hands in help preventing traffic accidents, contributing with competence and capacity. I can see that all of us who have gathered here today come from various sectors and professions. Whether you are a legislator, a doctor, a diplomat, engineer, police officer, journalist, social activist, we all have to play our part to contribute to road safety in our countries. Whether it is about abiding by the traffic rules, refraining from drinking and driving, or simply giving extra consideration to fellow road users. I would like to thank all of you very much for taking part in this webinar. And please rest assured that the Swedish Embassy will continue to stay engaged on these issues. I'm hoping that today's webinar is not a one-off. I hope it can lead to new meetings and continued and increased cooperation between all stakeholders. Until we meet again, please buckle up and stay safe. Tack och kraft.